The People Analytics Podcast is brought to you by hiQ Labs, recipient of the Human Resource Executives 2016 Top HR Product Award. For more information about hiQ Labs, please visit us at www.hiqlabs.com.
This week on the People Analytics Podcast, we go to the Elevation Awards in Santa Clara, California, and we get a talk from Alexis Fink of Intel.
This event is a fantastic way for the community to come together and share as we move towards the next half decade of innovation in this space.
Hey, podcast listener, thanks for tuning in. I am your host and workforce scientist, Michael Hausman, and today we have a very special segment. In October 2016, hiQ held its Elevation Awards, its first ever Elevation Awards in Santa Clara, California, and we had an amazing turnout, and we wanted to give you, the listener, a taste of hiQ Elevate. It's really hard to understand how electric the event is unless you've been there, but we do our best to give you a sample of some of the amazing talks that we heard and also the reaction from attendees. So to kick things off, I should point out that Intel co-hosted this year's Elevation Awards at the beautiful auditorium on their Santa Clara campus, and Alexis Fink gave an intro. Alexis is the General Manager for Talent Intelligence and Analytics at the Intel Corporation. She's a trained data scientist, and I know her personally. She's incredibly smart and insightful. So we thought we'd kick this segment off first with her phenomenal talk that she gave to introduce the event and to set the stage for everything else that came throughout the day. We hope you'll enjoy it.
First, I want to welcome you to my house. It's thrilling to see so many people that I respect from the community of talent analytics here at Intel in one of my favorite spaces, and it's an honor and privilege to be able to talk to all of you and engage with you as a community about where we're trying to push this field going forward. So what I really want to do is, rather than talk through a case study or walk you through Math Camp, as much as I love doing those things, I suspect you'll get them through the rest of the afternoon, I wanted to start with some framing. And the first piece of framing is to really help you think about what business you're in. In fact, I want to ask you to think about not specialists, but really about leaders, because what we're really doing is trying to influence decisions in situations that are complex or ambiguous, and that really is the work of leadership. And over again, our success is really going to be rooted in our ability to do that influencing work. And the first step is to figure out, what the heck do you really want to influence? These might not be the dimensions that you use. You're welcome to use any number of them, but just think about, what's the business that you're in? Are you a service provider who's simply answering requests as they come in? That's certainly the way many of us start and how many of our teams begin. Or are you really driving the agenda yourself based on your own expertise or that of your leaders? Similarly, are you really kind of chasing Dust Bowl empiricism? Are you really kind of just finding whatever happens to be there? Or are you carefully crafting and designing experiments and hypotheses? In other words, are you pursuing big data or little data methodologies? These aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. In fact, you can be all of these things, but for many of us who have teams of 3 or 4 or 6 or 9 people, we have to make some really intentional choices about how much of our bandwidth is dedicated to which of these problems. And so the first thing I would invite you to do is really be intentional. What business are you in, and what business do you want to be in? The next set of questions about that is, who are you in business for? What are you providing, and to whom? We have more clients than this. I expect many of you do as well. This is simply an illustration. But what are you providing and to whom? It may be very, very different products for very, very different purposes and to very, very different clients. Be really intentional about what you're trying to do. One of the mistakes that I see people do over and over again is say, hey, look, I've got this answer. Let me see who I can shop it around to, as opposed to trying to find a problem, an opportunity, the correct influence point, and really craft something that will be powerful and influential there. I also have a coaching conversation, 2 or 3 times a month, I think, with a colleague in another organization or even a colleague in my own who gets really frustrated about, I just want to do this sexy work and they keep asking me for reporting. And you just want to cry into your beer. And over again, the advice that I give people is you need to learn to take whatever opportunity is before you. Whatever that opportunity is, you can use as a Trojan horse, or if you don't like war analogies, I talk about it as a gift with purchase. And people will ask for something, and that is your opening. And even if it's on the same slide, find some way to bring value to them that's beyond what they've asked for. So if someone asks for simple reporting and you know that they need something analytical, let me slide that in there. Somebody asks you to make a tool change, but what you actually want to do as a business process or an analytical change, it's like, hey, you know what? Give me 30 days and I'm going to come back to you with an answer on that. And at the same time, hey, you asked me to do this. I ran a little 9-cell experiment and it turns out that'd be a stupid thing to do, so let's do this instead. How can you use that opening as an influence point and really take your insight and your expertise out to the client? When you're in a new field, or even a field that's newly engaging or newly expanding, people don't know how to ask for things. They don't even know what's possible. And so part of what we really have to do, part of our sacred charge, is really to figure out how do we help people become better clients. And so one of my key pieces of advice that I go over again and again and again is how do you really deliver that gift with purchase? How do you really deliver that Trojan horse opportunity to say, thank you so much for asking this super boring question. I'm going to answer one that's much better now. And that's, in my personal experience, a much better way than saying, God, that's a really dumb question. I don't feel like answering it. I have a very low hit rate of success with that answer. Much higher hit rate of success with, gosh, that's so interesting. Let me bring that to you, and I'm also going to bring you 6 more slides of something that's much, much more compelling. When that's done well, you'll spend 30 or 45 seconds on the super boring question they asked you, and then, gosh, a few weeks ago, he's not in the room now, but a colleague and I went and spent time with several of our senior leaders. They'd asked a fairly simple question, and then we spent the next 75 minutes out of a 60-minute meeting and our 15-minute agenda item talking about the interesting stuff that we'd done as kind of a gift with purchase, right? You can totally derail people's agendas with this. It's great. The second step is to really figure out where do you fit. It's interesting, over lunch we were talking about this a little bit again, and over again what I find is there are 3 basic models for how people fit in the organization, right? You're either in this very embedded and distributed model where you have fingers and toes everywhere. You might have one person who's great with Excel, you might have one really hopped up data scientist who's doing this 25% of their time out of passion, or you might have an analyst here and a half an analyst there and a half an analyst there. That's a really, really common model. It's also one that really robs you of power, and it robs you of career opportunities for your analysts, who, as we pointed out, are a really hot commodity. It's really important to give them a path to success, to impact, to growth, right? You can't do that if they're just fingers and toes and they're the only person like themselves. If I flip to the other side of the slide, the other model that I see increasingly that I actually don't love, I know SAP has pursued this, other organizations have, is they just sort of take a steam shovel and scoop up everybody with any kind of analytics expertise and they throw them in the same pot. The challenge with that is that the HR work and the talent work has to compete for server time and resources and data scientists with the marketing work and the product work and everything else, and often we end up getting short shrift. Beyond that, because we work with such sensitive data, because we work with personally identifiable information, because we might work with gender, ethnicity, LGBTQ status, disability, any of these other kinds of things, those aren't data you can give just anybody. Right? You really need to be inside HR to have access to those data sources most of the time. And so over and over again, my favorite model is one where predominantly you have a center of gravity. It doesn't have to be everybody. It really doesn't. There are reasons for other teams to sit in other places, but some level of consolidation, some level of center of gravity where you can sit inside HR, you can have access to the compelling data sets, and you can also have a compelling value proposition, good careers, and have enough resource available to say, hey, I'm looking at one right now. I can bring this guy who's a PhD in physics in, and he's going to bring things to my team, right? It would be hard to justify if that was the only person on the team. I have enough capacity that I can bring in the PhD in physics dude. He's like, yeah, man, she totally mentioned me. So you can do that kind of thing if you've got a little bit more consolidation. Wow, this is only 20 minutes. It's not much time. So the next thing is to really make sure that you find your partners, and this is work that is really critically important for us in HR because of the nature of work that we do. Over and over again, I find that my biggest risk is I will find an interesting problem and I will go down the rabbit hole and I will solve it, and then I will pop up out of the rabbit hole and say, look, I've solved world hunger, and the people who are needed to implement it are like, dude, I'm not interested in that problem. You missed 75% of the problem space. I already did something about that, and it's embarrassing, it's the wrong time. Somehow or other, you're just going to fail. So the key thing here is to make sure that you are, and I'll talk about this in a couple of slides, make sure that you're really finding those key partners in your organization, be they your business partners, be your finance partners who can help you with the rules of the organization, your purchasing partners, your IT partners, be they your HR partners. Because, by the way, HR can be your biggest help, and they can also, in many cases, and this has been true for me in a couple of organizations, they can be your biggest barrier. Because often you pose a little bit of an existential threat to the HR organization, particularly if you're in an established, this is supposed to be an apple cart, I couldn't find a good image. You're really going to sort of upset the apple cart. You're really going to upset the power dynamics in the organization, particularly if you're in a larger organization. You're in one where the HR function has been, it's gained status through intuition and relationships. And now you come along with your snappy little visualizations and your data, and all of a sudden, that's really a threat to the power of that HR relationship. If you come sideways, they will defend that, pretty viciously and pretty vigorously. If instead you can come as a partner, if instead you can come as an adjunct and a supplement, then you can actually help them extend their impact, extend their influence with that business partner, and the system overall will benefit. The challenge is you have to be sufficiently egoless to let that HR business partner get some of the credit. And that actually is probably the hardest part. It's like, dude, I'm the one bringing all the awesome. Like, how come this person gets the credit? Sorry, they own the relationship, you need them. So one of the other things that is a conversation I have pretty frequently is recognize the power dynamics that you're threatening. Recognize that whether it's coming from finance or whether it's coming most often from that business HR relationship, really respect it and work through it, because your goal is to have an impact on the organization, not just to feel awesome at the end of the day. Like, you should totally feel awesome, but that shouldn't be your first goal. The last thing you really need to do is to do the work. And this seems obvious, but in reality, if you haven't figured out what work you're doing and who you're doing it for, and you just jump in sort of half-cocked, you're not going to have a very high likelihood of success. Unfortunately, an awful lot of the mentoring conversations I have are exactly that. So I want to step back and talk about what does it even mean to do the work. Even that alone doesn't mean that you just get to jump in and start doing math, as much fun as that is. Instead, what I want to help us think about is, what do we even mean by doing the work? And realistically, I think about this in terms of a three-legged stool. See, I'm using the pictures. The first is you really do need content expertise, right? We cannot just pretend that this is completely content agnostic. I personally believe it is not only irresponsible, it's inefficient to just release unsupervised machine learning models and say they'll find anything that's good. If you don't believe me, go look up spurious correlations. You'll find a lot of crap out there. The second is really about data and data management. It's super unsexy. Like, putting stuff into SQL is not sexy work, but you know what? We saw some of the quotes at the beginning of the session that data and getting access to data is the biggest problem we have in being able to deliver results. Garbage in, garbage out. The access to those data streams, being able to find them, harvest them, store them, transform them, access them on the back end, all of that is absolutely critical and essential work for us to be able to have any impact at all. So you've got to have content. You have to have that basic fundamentals of data. And then finally, you get to have the cool analytical piece. Finally, you get to have the statistical methodologies. You get to throw your deep learning, your neural net, or whatever funky thing you want to throw at it. Finally, you get to do that. One of the things that I find is difficult in staffing, and some of the conversations I have are, gosh, I can't find anybody who does all of these three things. It's like, that's right, because there's like one, and I'm not that one. Like, I don't know where that person is, I haven't met him yet, but there's like one of them out of the whatever we have, 7 billion on the planet now. So what you really need to do is think about, how do you build a team, how do you build a strategy, how do you build a set of partners that will give you all of those things without having to find it resident in just one person. This is one of my favorite slides. I apologize to those of you who've seen it in the past. I'm kind of a zealot about it. The reality is, if you're going to do data, you can't just jump in at that red bar in the middle. Over and over again, I see people do this. It's not that that's not hard. That is super hard. It really is the sexy stuff. That's what people come for. But in reality, if you don't start by asking the right question, you're never going to get there. And I was talking with somebody this morning. It reminded me of, I don't know if it's a joke or a parable, so bear with me. But the old story about a guy who's like on his knees looking for the keys in the dark, and it's like, hey, let me help you. And you look for like 20 minutes and you can't find the keys. And then finally you're like, dude, your keys aren't here. Where did you lose them? Oh, I left them over there by my car. Well, like, why are we looking here? Because this is where the light is. And over and over and over again, you find that people are just asking a question because it's convenient. They're looking for data, or they're using a method because it's the one that they have handy, not because it's right, not because it's relevant, not because it will help them answer a question that's going to bring them business success, that's going to help them increase revenue, that's going to help them increase intent to stay because they become entirely unrecruitable, right? They're simply asking the thing that's convenient. It's in front of them. I know how to do it. When the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So how do you get past that problem? Then, of course, you get to analyze the data. That's the fun stuff. And after you've analyzed the data, you have to figure out what to do with it. Probably the number one mistake that my new professionals do for me is they deliver decks that are like 200 pages long. And I hate that. And frequently, I will tell people that I would rather have a thimble full of insight than an ocean full of data. And over again, what people give me is an entire ocean full of data, right? I can't use that. I don't want to look through 200 pages. I don't want to look through 10,000 cells on a spreadsheet. What I want is that one insight that tells me something I didn't know before, and that's going to impact my business. Great. So now you're done, right? You've got insight. No, that's not how it works. Once you've got insight, you have to figure out a way that you can take action based on that. You're not just done when you're smart. You're done when you can take action, right? And that actually is part of the magic and one of the things that I see changing over the next several years. For quite a while, a lot of people analytics work was just tell me what's happening. Like, how many people do I even have around here? Great. And then it was, who are the people that are likely to leave? What's the insight based on that? Now it's, oh, let me find an action. In essence, if you think about the sort of chain going up from predictive analytics, what will happen in the future, to prescriptive analytics, what can I do to intervene? That's where that action comes into play, right? So take action based on that insight. And then, finally, when you really get to be done, is when you go back and figure out whether you were effective. You go back and figure out and say, oh, I thought I could reduce attrition by 30%. Did that really happen? And oh, by the way, what's happened over the last 18, 24, 36 months? Am I still getting the benefit I needed from that? Has the world changed in some fundamental way? What's the right cadence to go back and reinvestigate, reinterrogate the data, do a new study, and find the new opportunity? How do I actually find results that will be effective so that you don't just get to walk off and declare victory and have a once and done? Most of this work really is going to have this sort of iterative quality. And in fact, some of my favorite successes over my career have been ones where after 3 years, my stuff doesn't work anymore. And for me, that's thrilling because it's an opportunity to go revisit a problem space and learn new things because my ecosystem, my demands in the organization, whatever else have fundamentally changed. And now I get to turn the crank the next time. And that's really exciting and it's compelling work. The other thing on that line is it's not just once and done. You don't get to do it once, declare victory, move on to the next problem, forget you were ever there. This is a slide that I used for those of you who were at the Airbnb event. I think it was in March. But you also need to take the time to interrogate a problem from all the possible sides. Right. So there are people in the audience here who would recognize this slide. This is one that we've used when we've talked publicly about our diversity work. And Brian actually made this slide for me. Thank you, sir. I use it all the time. I love it. But if you're really going to think about a problem, you don't just do one study. You say, oh, no, actually, I'm going to think about how I get data into the hands of the people who need it. So in this example, managers are getting real-time updates from a dashboard. Oh, by the way, we're doing a real-time push once a week to our executives. Oh, by the way, because part of what we're trying to do is change the industry and change people's perceptions, we push reports out twice a year. So we have different audiences with different cadences, different levels of dynamics, different levels of detail, different visualizations, all kinds of other things, sometimes supplemented by program information and sometimes not. The right audience with the right question at the right time in our reporting. Similarly, we use different methods to get there. So forecasting and optimization models to figure out what the heck should we even do? Are we on a path to be successful? Pipeline analysis that gives us another angle on what we should really do. Where are some of our weak spots? Looking out at the labor market to think about how we actually drive intervention for some of those spots. And supplement that with good old-fashioned qualitative information because there's no one right way to skin a cat. You're going to use all of them. And then finally, what's the next turn of the crank? After we've put this together, where do we go next? So in our diversity example, and I can share this because we've been doing it publicly, focus on promotion parity, focus on pay parity for URM, focus on things like manager parity, inclusion, et cetera. So how do I take this comprehensive problem and really interrogate it from a variety of angles? That's how you get something powerful. That's how you get something influential. That's how you really change your ecosystem. With 40 seconds left, the parting thought that I'd like to leave you with is I love awesome methods like deep learning and all kinds of sexy things as much, probably more than the next guy, right? And it will absolutely blow your mind. You'll go home and tell your dog about it. It's just going to leave you, you go to cocktails and love it. The challenge is finding something that will make a difference to your organization. Finding that opportunity to increase productivity, decrease retention, find more effective managers, build more effective teams, whatever that opportunity is, find the value proposition in your work and not just the cool thing that you could write up and go brag to your nerd friends on. And so my challenge to you is to always eternally focus in this work on value.
Such an amazing talk from Alexis. She has so many great points that she made during the talk. My favorite, however, is that she points out it's all about what questions you're asking. It's not necessarily how you dig in, how you use the data, how you do the analysis. First, you have to ask, what questions am I asking, and are they the right questions? I loved her line, gift with purchase. Will absolutely be using that myself. I think it's always important to give people a little bit of a aha moment when you're presenting analytics. And likewise, you have to present insights and not data. Like she said, a thimbleful of insights is worth a mountain worth of data. We need to really distill it for people who aren't necessarily trained as data scientists. And really, ultimately, it's about, like she said, find the value proposition in your work and not just the cool thing that you can write up easily. So we had a lot of attendees that said they loved Alexis's talk, and we did a man on the street segment so that you could hear the voice of the attendees themselves, what they liked. We asked them about their experiences, their favorite parts of the conference, and also how they've seen the community evolve over the years. So we hope you'll listen to a few of those segments, and then we're going to segue into some of the Elevation Award winners.
I'm here with Burke Powers, another people analytics leader. Burke, tell me, you've been at this first half of the conference. What's the most interesting thing that you've heard or learned from any of the presenters?
Well, a couple things come immediately to mind. The first one, I loved the way Alexis Fink presented really how to explain analytics to the rest of the HR function. You know, that's something that we all struggle with somewhat, and it gave me a lot of good ideas. Took a lot of notes thinking about it. And I think it's going to give me, help me crack that code with a couple of the people that I've struggled to help them understand it. Other than that, I also enjoyed Al Adamson's comments, some of his comments about what the opportunities are and some of the demands. One that I loved his call out on, marketing has trouble justifying and quantifying its impact. And yet we're asked to understand not only our impact, but how we're impacting their impact. And I loved that call out. So that was the other thing. Those are the two that I've been thinking about.
Hey, I'm here with Sergio Cordito, who's an HR analytics manager with Nestle. Sergio, what's been your favorite part of Elevate so far?
Well, I think the presentation of our model, it's definitely up there with the internal and external model that we have worked with you guys. That was awesome. But looking at the trends and the new tool that matches the skills and help recruiters or internal HRBPs find the right skills internally, it's definitely something amazing. I think the evolution of your tools have been amazing, and see that you have taken all the feedback and convert that to an amazing tool. It's unbelievable. So I'm really proud to be part of this community and see you guys growing. It's a huge pleasure.
Oh man, I'm blushing, I swear. Thank you so much, Sergio.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm here with Arun Chidambaram, who's the head of HR analytics at Pfizer. And Arun, we're surrounded by people analytics professionals here at Elevate, and you've been a part of this community for so long. How have you seen it evolve, and what are the things that really jump out at you?
Great, thanks, Mike. I think I'm looking at the diversity of this group. It is just phenomenal. We have astrophysicists, labor economists, engineers, mathematicians, HR professionals, all under one roof. And I think this is a must-have conference from all HR people, because there's a nice blend of both the consumer of analytics and the supplier of analytics. So it is a show for people who are starting this business, as well as to more matured and advanced users like ours. So I think this is an absolutely great show and look forward to more hiQ events.
So I'm here with Gene Pease, who is the founder of Vectrix, which was actually just acquired by Ultimate Software. Congrats, by the way, on that, Gene.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, and let me ask you, you were here all day. What was your favorite part of the Elevate conference?
Well, honestly, it was the theme. And it was the theme that wove through it about connecting HR investments to business outcomes. And that's been a critical theme from some of us who have been in the industry forever, trying to do this, but it's still very early in the industry's adoption of trying to link outcomes, business outcomes, to HR investments. So I think the theme of the conference was by very unique, number one, and very timely.
Oh my God, so many great quotes from some of our attendees. I can't really do them justice. Burke Powers is amazing, super smart guy. I loved how he highlighted Al's comments during the panel that I hosted on how it's hard to measure impact and ROI, and that HR shouldn't be held to a different standard than marketing. Sergio Cardito at Nestle, their presentation was amazing. It's so fun when you can get Nestle to co-present with hiQ, and it's a great story of industry and vendor collaboration. Arun has been doing this for years and years, so he's got so much perspective on how the community has grown, and he was able to talk about how it's evolved over time and how the changes he's seen have manifested. And finally, Gene Pease, who's a friend of mine, really nailed it in that we gave a lot of thought to this year's theme, business impact, and we wanted to make sure that it really resonated with our audience, and it sounds like it did. So for our next segment, we actually gathered some reactions to the awards that we gave out. We gave out 8 awards in total, as well as the Guru Award for Lifetime Achievement. I have to say, I was a judge on the awards committee, and there were some amazing submissions, really incredible stuff that made me proud to be a part of this community. And we wanted to reward some of the amazing work that people are doing. So we hope you'll enjoy those reactions.
And we're here with Craig Starbuck, who's the HR Reporting and Analytics Manager for Scottrade. Congratulations, Scottrade was the winner of one of our awards.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And now this being our first ever Elevation Awards, what are your thoughts? What stood out to you as being kind of, a cool part of the event?
I think it's exciting to see the traction in the space. It's very much a burgeoning field. I think more and more organizations are taking an interest in people analytics and beginning to see the ROI. Bringing data into a field that historically has not been very data-driven, I think is exciting. Every other part of the business is data-driven, so why shouldn't HR as well? So bringing data science to people decisions, I think, is foundational to the business success.
Outstanding. Well, I was one of those judges, and I have to say you guys did a phenomenal job. So congrats again, and thanks so much. So we're here with Anthony Abel, who's the Vice President of People Analytics at TrustSphere. Anthony, of all the winners that we saw today, who was it that really impressed you the most?
Well, all of them really impressed me, but if I had to choose one, I will go with R.J. Milner on Chevron. Because what they actually did, for me, encapsulated our whole community. It was really trying to, with limited resources, trying to get everyone to start and embrace the people analytics mindset. So not trying to hire too many people, but just by leveraging your internal resources, being able to diffuse within an organization the sense of what makes sense to improve people analytics decision to support the business.
So I'm here with Lorenzo Conless, who's the head of talent analytics for LinkedIn and is also an award winner. His amazing team at LinkedIn won the Impact Award. Lorenzo, what's the one piece of advice you would give to teams that are trying to make an impact in their organization?
Invest in what we call the last mile. So talent analytics teams love to do a lot of work to generate the interesting insights about, what makes a great manager, what makes a great leader, what makes a great employee. And sometimes they like to come up with recommendations that people should do. And what we call the last mile is what is all the process changes, behavior changes, actions, accountability that it takes for people to actually do something to make an impact. And we often find that we do all the analysis and then invest a very small percentage of time in that last mile. So an investment in that time is what it takes. It might not be analytics, but what it takes to actually move the needle.
It was amazing to see all the award winners and again to have reviewed their submissions. There's some phenomenal work going on out there. Congrats, of course, to Scottrade, who won the Rookie of the Year award. Their submission was amazing. It's just unbelievable to see what they did in just a first year of their team's existence. Anthony Abell highlighted the work that RJ Milner did with Chevron and really highlighted that it's about some of the amazing things they did with limited resources. We wanted to really capture that because sometimes we're resource constrained and we need to be a little ninja-like in terms of how we're able to deploy those resources. And finally, Lorenzo Conless is honestly one of my favorite human beings. I loved what he said about his quote-unquote the last mile. It's easy to do the analysis, but a lot of times that's where the organizations fall short, is they don't push it through, they don't carry it out. And so I'm really going to be adopting that in my own day-to-day philosophy towards people analytics. So the next set of interviewers, I'm really proud to introduce our hiQers that capped off the day and were ultimately able to breathe a sigh of relief because they organized the event. We start with Darren and move into Jen and Stu, who do a ton of work behind the scenes to make this event happen.
So I'm here with Darren Kaplan, who's a co-founder and CEO of hiQ Labs. And Darren, we had Alexis welcoming everyone at the beginning of the event and saying that she thought this community had really evolved in the last 5 years in terms of size, but also diversity of thought. What do you see coming for the next 5 years?
Yeah, and Michael, great question, and what a great day it was today at hiQ Elevate. I think the next 5 years, what we're going to see is great evolution in the work that everyone here is doing. We're really raising the standard to make sure employees are happy and safe, and I'm really excited to be part of that. And we want to thank all the community members as well.
And Darren is an amazing guy and honestly a personal hero of mine because of how he founded hiQ and all the things he's been able to do with this company. And it was nice to hear his predictions for the next 5 years around making employees happy and safe. I think we're going to hear a lot more of that in the future. And then finally, we had one of our producers, Matt DeSantis, who spoke with Jen Kaplan and Stu Gold, who organized the event. Let me tell you guys, those two work so hard when we put one of these on, and yet they're just behind the scenes, making sure that everything goes off without a hitch.
I've got Jennifer Kaplan and Stuart Gold, who are the backbone of the Elevate conferences and the driving force behind the Elevation Awards. First of all, Jen, congratulations on an awesome event.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to produce with Stu.
Tell me when we're going to do this again. Are you ready to unveil?
We were talking about an Elevate in April in the Bay Area, and we're super excited about it. I can't wait to tell you who all our speakers are. They're going to be equally, if not more fabulous than the ones here today.
Which is a pretty high task because this was a pretty good event.
You know, and Jen and I have done all of these together since the very beginning, and believe it or not, even though we're event people and marketers, we're also part of the community, and for us to see these people have such passion to talk about what they do for their livings, their careers, their professions, and to have created this community. hiQ had created this community where they actually can walk home and go back to work tomorrow and hold their shoulders up really high that they're a part of something that is really big right now, which is all about people analytics, talent management, retention, and they've got their place at the board table now, and it's very exciting to see that.
I loved Stu's thought about how the people analytics community has a seat at the board table. I don't think you could say that even 2-3 years ago. Totally love their comments. And again, Jen and Stu do an amazing job behind the scenes. If you do see them, everyone owes them a beer because it's amazing what they're able to do with this event. So that was our taste of Elevate and a little bit of the man on the street. We hope it gave you at least a flavor for what our Elevate and Elevation awards are like. If you're interested, we'd love to have you attend. They really can't do justice via a podcast. You have to be there and talk to people and get a feel for that community. But if you are interested, please visit our website, www.hiqlabs, and learn more about how you can attend. They're very easy to attend. We have them regularly, and we'd love to have you join. I'd also like to thank everyone that made this podcast possible: our executive producer, Jennifer Kaplan, the show's producer, Matt DeSantis, and our sound engineer, John Bacchia. And most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for downloading the hiQ People Analytics podcast. The People Analytics podcast is now available wherever you find your favorite podcasts: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. We're at your fingertips. Simply Google hiQ Podcast to find your favorite platform. And once you do, please subscribe, rate, and review us. By subscribing, you can be sure that you don't miss a single episode. By rating, you can help others find us. And by reviewing, you can help play an important role in shaping the conversations surrounding People Analytics podcasts. Until next time, I'm Michael Hausman, and have a data-driven day.
Thank you for listening to the People Analytics Podcast. For more information about hiQ, you can visit us at www.hiqlabs.com. And to join the conversation by following us at LinkedIn and Twitter at hiQ Labs.